Well, good morning and welcome to this wake-up call. We are so glad you're here. If you have been joining us, welcome back. If you're joining for the first time, I hope that this will be a regular part of your morning, Monday through Friday at 8:15 Central Time, 9:15 Eastern Time. And we are excited about sharing today. We are sharing from the book, The Little Things Matter by W. Todd Smith. Now, normally I read the chapters on Tuesdays. Tuesdays is our day. But today, Mr. Yount is going to read to you all today's chapter. Very excited about that. And usually, Jamie and I don't really, we never really introduce ourselves. Where's Jamie and Holly from Ohio? But this morning, I have the privilege of introducing my hero, my very best friend. I've known him practically my whole life. We met when we were 9 years old, when I was 9 years old, and I have watched this man do exactly what this book is about so very well. The little things matter. He's a master of doing the little things, and I'm excited to turn the call over to him. Here he is, Mr. Yount.
Thank you. And I have always said the little things are the big things, but also learned a long time ago, don't believe your introductions and don't buy into the hype. So with that, thank you, my sweet wife and my very best friend. But really today, the title is Chapter 69, Use Preferred Methods of Communication. And so this is just one of those times where we kind of have to call an audible because the book was written in 2009, and it does a little study on preferred methods of communication. And essentially the gist of the chapter is the majority of people, nearly 50% of people, prefer email, and no one prefers texting and social media. So that is absolutely dated material, and so I'm not going to read the chapter today. I'm sure somebody might not like that, but it's not going to apply to us. It's going to send the wrong message, but we can still go with the title of using the preferred method of communication. And really, I think just to kind of kick it off, all of that is really flip-flopped. We live in a social media world and a texting world where that's really the majority of communication. And so it's really just a testament to how times can change. But I believe there's one thing that will never change, because also in that, almost 40% of the people, preferred face-to-face communication. And I think no matter what technology looks like, no matter, what we do in business, in life, right, communication and face-to-face communication is key. And we just live in a social media, one-sided narratives, nearly no accountability world. And just because that's the norm doesn't make it right. Now, with that being said, you have to, you use people's preferred method of communication. I'm going to turn it over to Holly in a second, but I just had a really quick story that I wanted to share, and it's really about communication, because I believe, I have a men's group that I do, and devotional, and every day, and Holly has the same for ladies, and, I do a call on Mondays with a few, men, and, I always like to talk about this communication, because communication is so key in relationships. And I believe that, the reason why relationships break down, the number one reason is lack of communication. Now, some people say, well, you over-communicate, but it'd be better to over-communicate than to not communicate. And that goes for, any relationship, whether that's your business relationship with people at work, certainly your relationship with your spouse, and definitely your relationship with your Lord and Savior. The thing about that, I always, say, Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So he doesn't change. He's always communicating. He's always listening. We just get maybe we're busyness as a feather in our cap, or we stop communicating with him. And so we never break down that relationship because of him. It's because of us, right? But when you take that into consideration and you apply that to the rest of your relationships, say, with your spouse, so many times, it's just a lack of communication. Do you communicate on a regular basis? Do you communicate, your needs? Do you communicate? We talked about this on the last Tuesday when we had the call, just communicating the hard conversations, right? But nonetheless, it was communicating. We've always communicated back and forth, Holly and I. We've not always done it in the preferred method. When I'm standing on the court playing basketball and she's screaming at me from the stands, probably not the best form of communication, and then to communicate back. But nonetheless, there's always been communication, and which always helps to grow and improve a relationship. But I have we live in this world, and I have a friend, and he doesn't have a very good marriage, but I always would ask him. He say, he said, he would say, this is what's going on, and I would say, well, did you talk to your wife? He'd say, no, we don't talk. And I said, well, but you live together, every day. It's like, yeah, but we don't talk. He said, we'll go for days without talking, and it just doesn't make sense. And it's kind of a thing to think about. And I said, well, how do you communicate? And he said, well, we'll sit in the same room and we'll message back and forth on Facebook, and we'll argue on Messenger back and forth. And I laughed, but it really wasn't funny. And you may laugh because it's really not funny, but it just is one of those things that when someone is right there, like, we just have to communicate, and texting and social media is a great way to communicate. However, it just allows always for a one-sided narrative that really has not much, if any, accountability, and it allows for much argument, right? Whereas, say, with my friend, if he would set down the phone and just speak to his wife, that relationship would probably get better, because it's a better form of communication when you're talking about, kind of problems and issues. One kind of rule of social media and kind of the texting thing, there's so much about it. It's a great form of communication. It's really the most widely used nowadays. But also in that, many times we live in this kind of offended, really self-centered world where the version of what's going on is sometimes we're not thinking of kind of the bigger picture and everyone else, the unintended consequences and things like that. So it may, and maybe you say, gosh, this is a really, preachy kind of message from Jamie. And here's the thing. I think if you step back and you just take a look at really sometimes how many times have you communicated and miscommunicated through a text? How many times has someone, we always call them keyboard ninjas, they'll come on to your Facebook and they'll post something really negative or derogatory, and then you want to go back and kind of fight back, but it just only erupts into more damage for everyone, and you really give them what they want because there's no accountability. And it's so much better just to leave on a positive and walk away, because there's no real communication. It's just drama and arguing, which is a super example of my friend. It just created more drama, more arguing, and his kids, his family, his relationship suffered. And so when you talk about using preferred methods of communication, before I turn to Holly, I think so many times we can still use email. It's still a great way. Picking up the phone is a great way. Social media is still a way to communicate. So is texting. And obviously, I believe that nothing can ever replace a face-to-face conversation, especially if you're talking about this in business or in your key relationships, when someone can really genuinely look you in the eye and they can see your heart, they can feel really where you stand and who you are. And so that's kind of the audible for today's preferred methods of communication from me. And I'm going to turn it over to Holly to see what's your take on the chapter that I just didn't read.
Hey, that was funny and fun, and wow, gave me a lot to think about as you were sitting here talking. And, that was the chapter, Use Preferred Methods of Communication. And really what we can learn from all of that is, communication is key. It's important. And finding out how other people like to communicate is also really, really important, because you're going to be able to build a relationship by being respectful of how they would like to communicate. And oftentimes, when I am building a relationship with someone, and let's say I'm doing it, through social media, and I'm just trying to get to know them, I will often say, hey, I'd love to continue this conversation. How would you prefer to continue? Do you want to continue to message? Do you want my phone number so we can text? Do you want to do a phone call? Do you want to do Zoom? There's so many opportunities, and really letting them decide how they want to communicate, I believe, is always best. That helps someone feel more comfortable, helps them also feel like they're in control. And at the end of the day, my personal goal is always to be able to see them face to face, whether that is over a Zoom or whether that is in person. For me personally, a hard of hearing person, face to face is always best, so I can read lips as well. And so, or a Zoom, but I prefer face to face. But sometimes it's not possible if someone lives, states away or clear across the country. But again, always being respectful of how they would like to be communicated to. And before we leave, I just wanted to share, as you guys always know, I always try to share a little story, and I know Jamie does too, of our own personal lives, to just be able to connect with you all. And hopefully you're thinking of your own personal stories as we're sharing too. But I'd love to take my boys, James is 19, Charlie is 10, and I love to, and I put this in quotation marks, date them every month individually. We go out and we have, we get lunch, or we do some shopping, or we go to the park, or we go bowling, or we just do something. Sometimes we just stay here at the house. It's not always that we go out. Sometimes we just stay here at the house, and we might go, play catch or play some basketball, wiffle ball, do something outside, catch frogs. I mean, we've done a lot of different things here, have a picnic outside. But why I'm sharing that is I spend time with them because I want to be able to communicate with them and listen to them and be in their space and really help them understand that, I'm always going to be a part of their lives, and I always want them to be able to communicate with me. And often during those times is when we have these big life discussions, and we are able to do that in a space where they are they feel connected and they feel like it's a safe space. But often when we are out and about, and this is my story, when we're out and about, we're sitting at the table. Let's say we're having lunch and we're talking or communicating, or we're playing tic-tac-toe, or we're just, we do all kinds of fun things as a family. But when I'm with my boys, and one time we were out to this restaurant and we were eating, and I looked up, and every single person in this restaurant was on their phones. Moms and dads with their kids were on their phones. Friends were on their phones. And I told the boys, I said, just look up for a minute and just look around. What do you guys notice? And I remember Charlie, my youngest, said, these people look like zombies. And I said, what do you mean? He said, they're all on their phones. Everyone's on their phones. And it was almost like we were in this weird movie where, my oldest son, James, says, oh, my gosh, it's like we're in a strange movie. Everyone's on their phones. And although the phones are a great form of communication, oftentimes, we use them to feel connected to people, but we miss the people that are right in front of our faces, that are right sitting next to us on the couch, that are with us when we're eating dinner. And we miss that connection because we're so busy being on our phone. So lots of things to say about communication this morning, some food for thought, something to think about as you're going throughout your day, how other people like to communicate, how you like to communicate, and above all, just communicate. That's the most important thing. So we appreciate your time. We'll be back tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel, as we like to say, and we hope you'll continue to join us. I'll have Jamie unmute the lines, and we love you all. Have a blessed day.
All right. We love you all. Thank you for joining us today.